What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com, and I am back with another betting show as a very fun card, fun main event anyway. Maybe a fun card is a bit of a stretch there, but a fun main event between Cory Sandhagen and Yadong goes down over in the UFC Apex again. It feels like the 1000th UFC Apex show, but look, that's the world we're living in. Well, you know what? It's no longer the world we're living in, to be honest, but it's the world the UFC seem to be happy to keep living in, despite saying the contrary for a long time. But that's what we have anyway, and that's what we're going to be seeing this week. Hopefully it's not as much mayhem as we had last week, where I was like, do you know what, everyone, stick your bets in the comment section. We'll read them out next week. And by the time everyone had watched the show, or almost by the time the show was out, all the fights were up in mayhem. None of the bets are anymore going, and everyone was kind of looking back into at what bets they were going to do. So maybe this week will be a little bit different. If you're listening to this maybe on Thursday, Friday evening, having a look at the bets, you're going to your local bookmakers or whatever it might be, you're looking online, throw me down in the comment section below. See what bet. Are you betting on Yadong, Sandhagen? Are you going to throw them on someone like an Anthony Hernandez or a Pat Sabatini? I know a couple of weeks ago we had someone in. I was on one of the UFC Paris shows, and everyone was saying this one. Who was it? I can't remember exactly who it was on the undercard. Why is he not on your bets? He should be the lock and everything. So let me know your lock. Let me know your lock of the week in the comment section below. It doesn't have to be plus 500 or anything like that, but let me know. And if you have a big plus 500 bet as well, let me know your flyer of the week. So put that in the comment section below. Last week's bets obviously were kind of thrown into dispute, although very close. We were very, very close to hitting the flyer last week. I said Johnny Walker first round KO. He got the first round finish, but it was a submission. And you know, as luck would have it, in my bookmakers where I put on my bets, or actually I started with a new one there recently, and they had a special Johnny Walker by either KO or submission, and I was going to do the bet that I told everyone last week, and I was like, you know what, that's like a higher price, and it was even a better price, so I was like, come on, let's do that, back that, and I saw, look, yeah, I did it, the ticket cashed, and we got Johnny Walker by submission. Now, I won't say I predicted. I did predict. Like, it was an interesting fight. I obviously won't relitigate that fight or anything like that as in this show, but I think it's, if we're looking forward to bets in the future, I think if you didn't back Johnny Walker to win that time, even if you didn't even just back him straight up, I think it was a good price to win straight up. You've probably missed out on that price now, because I think there was a gap between people watching MMA and what I talked about last week and the bookmakers there. We do you know what? We used to see that all the time in MMA before. With, you know, I think people who were around betting a long time before me were talking about even Anderson Silva when he came in against Chris Lee. Maybe he wasn't the underdog necessarily, but I think he was a pretty good price. And, you know, McGregor, when he came into the UFC, I know a lot of people over here made a lot of money. And I remember actually the night of UFC Dublin, I remember seeing a guy with like 5 or 6 different tickets that had all cashed and were all pretty good prices, because a lot of the people just, you know, they didn't know the local fighters. That time it was very, well, not necessarily very, but it was harder to watch places like Cage Warriors than it is now. And if someone, let's say a Paddy Pimblett or whoever comes over from Cage Warriors, you know them now, or an Ian Gary. Whereas back then it was a lot harder. So I think there is still a bit of that. But not as much as usual. I feel like that Johnny Walker one was one, but it will be fixed, because his performance from 2 performances ago and his performance from the last performance kind of melded into one, I think, for the bookmakers, where it should have been the opposite way around, where he showed good things in the first one, tried to change it for the second one, and maybe got it right in this one, even though he struggled for a bit at the start. Anyway, that's, I suppose, a bigger conversation for another day. And let's get into our bets. Before we do that, please bet responsibly. I have to say it every week. Don't go overboard. Don't go mad. As I said, like I did last week, keep it fun, and we'll all be able to watch this every week and have great fun watching it. So let's do that. Right, first bet of the week. I'm going for Fili, who is minus 112. You can get him at slightly better prices in other places, slightly worse in other places too. I see him actually up here as much as minus 130 for his fight against Algeo. Algeo is around even money. I see him minus 106 here in one place. So it's a very, very close fight in terms of the betting numbers there. The reason I'm going for Fili, he hasn't had a great time over the last while. He's been out for a while, and then he's had losses and stuff. He hasn't won a fight since back in 2020. That was a good win over Charles Jourdain. He had a tough loss in a very close fight against Nathaniel Wood there a couple of weeks ago, but he's been on, a good run and looking good since that. And he's lost to Bryce Mitchell. There's no shame in that, and he got caught in 41 seconds against Breto, and the one before that was an eye poke, so we can't read in too much into that. I just think if you look at him here in this fight with Bill Algeo, and this may be a team of some of my picks for today, I'm kind of going for a better athlete is maybe a harsh way of saying it, but the faster, looser guy on the outside to win here. That's what I'm going for in a lot of these matchups. Now, if this gets into, I think, a war of attrition, and it's like a back and forth with loads of takedowns and things like that. Like Bill Algeo, we saw him against Herbert Burns in a fight which I will talk about again in a few minutes. He destroyed him basically. He was able to. Sorry, I won't talk about that fight. I'll talk about another Herbert Burns fight in a minute. But anyway. Or are we like? I don't know. Forget that. But no, it was that Herbert Burns fight where, do you know what he did? It was actually, it reminds me, I'm going to be talking about Pat Sabatini later on. And I was looking at one of his fights, and he did a very similar thing in his fight that Bill Algeo did in this fight, where he kind of, when you get into a clinch, and maybe this is a better point for that for that chat, but you get into the clinch and you kind of just pull a guy to the ground or fall to the ground. I think Herbert Burns did it to Bill Algeo here, but Pat Sabatini did it in one of his fights, which I think was a great thing. The problem I have with it here in this one is if Bill Algeo gets the fight to the ground that way, or if he gets taken down that easy that way, I think that could be a problem with Andre Fili as well, because you don't want to. Now, the reason I'm saying that is you don't want to give up anything easy against Fili, right? You really don't. Like that Burns kind of pull guard, let him get you to where he wants to get you. That's not a good sign. Okay, you're probably thinking, okay, he's pulling guard and all of that, and what can you really do about it? But I just think, and it worked out well for Bill Algeo, don't get me wrong, but if you do that sort of thing against him, what's to say you won't do it again? And what's to say you won't do it against a guy like Andre Fili? And I'm not just saying pulling guard, but like getting into a range with him where he wants to fight. Like, I think, look, what Bill Algeo, I think, needs to do here, he needs to get in very close and work the body, I think, is a big part of it. Make it a dogfight, go for takedowns, push him against the cage, and make it just a tough, rotten fight. Catch him with a big shot. But why I started this with he needs the better athlete to win it, and Andre Fili. I think Fili needs to do the opposite of that. He needs to stick and move, work on the outside, move his feet, something which I'll talk about in the main event as well. I think it'll be very similar, but I think that's what he needs to do to win this fight, Andre Fili. And I also think that I talked about the rest in there, and Algeo maybe needed a couple of takedowns. I think maybe Fili, a good thing. Sometimes Fili gets caught up in fights and he gets hit, and he usually wins those fights, and I think he'd probably win that fight against Bill Algeo. But in some fights, then he gets hit and he gets hurt. And I don't it's not that he doesn't have a good chin; it's that I think he's maybe tested it one or two too many times. If you get me. And I don't think Bill Algeo is not the biggest hitter in the world or anything like that. He is 4 knockouts and 16 wins, 4 knockouts and 22 fights in total. So, he's not exactly Junior Dos Santos out here or anything like that. But you don't want to get into that fight. And I feel like adding in a few takedowns might help. Now, Algeo can wrestle himself and he pushes guys against the fence himself. We saw famously in the Brendan Loughnane fight, though, he can be taken down as well. So I think a more intelligent all-around game plan here from Andre Fili might be the way forward. And, he's also fighting out of Team Alpha Male, if I'm not mistaken, which is the same gym as Song Yadong in the main event. So I'm sure the two of them have been right in there together in their preparations for this fight, and that can only help Fili especially, but Song Yadong as well. And, Bill Algeo is probably like a Song Yadong light, if you want to put it that way, in terms of he's I wouldn't say he's a similar sort of fighter, but if you get me, like, he walks forward like Song Yadong walks forward. He throws the right hand inside, he gets inside close, goes for a few takedowns. You know, I don't think he's maybe Song is as agricultural as him, pushing you against the fence and things, but if you can spar well and do well against Song Yadong, I think you would probably have a good chance of doing well against Bill Algeo. So, just overall, I think, in conclusion here, I think Algeo will struggle in certain areas against Fili if it stays away from the dogfight territory. I think if Fili can kind of get that underhook wrist control against the cage, turn out and push him away, I think he can win from range if he throws a few of those flying knees. Maybe even does get taken down once, pushes the head down, gets straight back up, gets a takedown of his own. Yeah, I think that sort of, like, there's a fight here, I think, where it does go a bit mad and Fili still wins it, if you get me. I think it'll need to be a very specific type of fight for Algeo to win it. And can that happen? Yeah, absolutely. The betting is close because of that. But I would probably have a little bit wider here for Fili, I think. So I'm going for him at that price, minus 112. I'm going for him at that. Okay. My next bet, the guy I just talked about a minute ago, Pat Sabatini, to beat Damon Jackson. A very interesting fight, two kind of tough-nosed wrestlers. It's funny, I went back and I watched some of Damon Jackson this morning, and I don't know why, but maybe I didn't have him down as, and I don't know why, maybe it was just my memory, but as like tough-nosed and slick of a wrestler maybe as he is. Now, he's a lot of submissions, obviously, he gets a lot of finishes when the fight does hit the ground, we remember his losses, I suppose, to Leah Topuria, and back in LFA, and just looking at his record here on Sherdog, lost to Khabibulov, who is, obviously a very strong wrestler, but a good striker as well, but Topuria, we know, is a very, very good striker. I think this one is kind of, you have a 31-year-old wrestler who's 5'9" in Pat Sabatini, right? And then you have a 5'11", 34-year-old wrestler in Damon Jackson. And I just wonder, would those extra few years on the road for Damon Jackson kind of show here? I was thinking, as I was watching both of their fights, I was thinking the only difference here relative that Damon Jackson might have is that height. And when I see here it's only 2 inches, maybe it's not as big. Do you know what? I'm going to be very interested to see him weighing in and maybe staring down to see maybe the height discrepancy, because sometimes you see 5'11", 5'9", and one lad looks like Stefan Struve and the other lad looks like Demetrius Johnson or something. That can happen as well in MMA. These things happen in MMA as we know. But I think that's the only thing that Damon Jackson might have if Sabatini kind of struggles to kind of get in low and get in against him, and maybe he can push the head down, or maybe when the fight gets to the clinch, they can get up tall and get the maybe even the overhooks on both sides and pull him up and get that head past belly button level or hip level or whatever it might be. I think that's where Jackson will need to do his business here, but I think he's going to struggle. I don't think he is, and I'm going for Pat Sabatini minus 185. Honestly, I think that's a very good price for Sabatini. He is, he's up as far as minus 215 here in some places. I see. Actually, you can get him as good as minus 180 as well. So I think people, the betting odds are that's a big gap between minus 180 and minus 215. So. Yeah, look, the difference here, and I'll say it again, athleticism. I just think Pat Sabatini is a stronger, faster guy. I think he's better striking as well. As I said, similar to the last fight, I think he'd be able to come in. No, this is the opposite way around here to the winner I'm picking this one. I think he will be able to get inside and he will be able to land more. But you see Sabatini early in his fights. He's the type of guy who will Hamza Chimaev goes straight for the ankles, take it down. Doesn't always, but he can do that. And the point I was making with the Herbert Burns fight earlier on, where he pulled guard and it went very badly for him. There was a fight I was watching of Pat Sabatini. Let me just see if I can find who it was here again. I think it was a TJ Laramie fight. I think it was, where he got into the clinch against him. And he's very similar to what Herbert Burns did, pull guard. And it was the Laramie fight, 100%. Laramie got on top. And maybe he was on top for 45 seconds-ish. And landed a couple of shots, but then Sabatini turned it over and got on top. All he needs is like a wrestling mat. Get a bit of space, get in on maybe a single leg or a high crotch or whatever it might be, or just turn him over a little bit on the ground, get a bit of an angle, and he's going to turn and end up on top. That's how good he is. Like a lot of the times, like the Burns fight, Burns is working on his jiu-jitsu there. He's happy from the bottom or on the top, but he's back in jiu-jitsu. He's back in a finish there. Right? All Sabatini's back in those sort of positions are the positions themselves, and he's back in the fact that he can, if he gives up a bad position for 1 second, that in 45 seconds later he can win a better position out of it. And that's exactly what he did in the Laramie fight, and that's what he's done in multiple fights as well. Now, that can be a bad thing if you come up with against a higher level, and maybe Jackson is that, because Jackson is a very good wrestler too. I think they said he was an NIA All-American or something like that, or he's a good wrestler too. But I just think Sabatini's better. I just think he's a better wrestler. I think he will be more cognizant this time of giving up a bad position against Jackson because he knows what Jackson is. But I do think still he'd be able to, and look, that's where the striking comes into it as well. Because if he can strike for a bit with Jackson, take the takedown where he needs to take it at the time he needs to take it, I think that'll be even more success for him. So I think Sabatini will win this one. Look, if you want to do it, talk about the elephant in the room as well of two wrestlers fighting, maybe it'll turn into a kickboxing match. I haven't seen anything from Jackson really that it would show that he is going to win a kickboxing match against Sabatini. Now, maybe I'm wrong. No, I haven't said that, right? Neither of these two guys are amazing strikers. There's no... Okay, this is not going to be Canelo against Triple G or anything in here, lads. Make no mistake about that. But I do like Sabatini's power work inside. He's against a taller guy as well. Working to the body is going to be good for him. And I'm just going to go for Sabatini overall. Minus 185. Next bet I'm going for Sara McMann. And I have an awful soft spot for Sara McMann. I always betting her plus 1, 2, 3 here to beat Aspen, lad. I think this is a very good price, if I'm being honest. I really do. I think Aspen, lad, is one of those fighters who is like, she started off her career. And she obviously, she went on a great run, winning, what was it, 8 fights in a row? Yeah, 8-0. And she beat good people like, Lena Landsberg, Sajara Eubanks, Tanya Evinger and all. And then she kind of, the level went up. She lost to Jermaine Durandamy. Obviously, we remember that one. We go, okay, write that one off, whatever you want to do. Did Norman DeMont and Raquel Pennington as well. And I think that kind of step back will either be a good thing or a bad thing. People gave out about the coaching in one of her recent fights and didn't like that. I wasn't necessarily that I liked it or didn't like it. I was thinking, is it right for a certain person? I wonder, is it right for Aspen, lad? And I don't think she's left that gym or anything. So is that going to benefit her? Like, is she going to make the improvements after those fights that she needs in a fight like she's going to get here against Sara McMann? Because the thing is, look, Aspen, lad, I would say she's a good all-around fighter. She can do a bit of wrestling, she can do a bit of striking. Wouldn't say she's a massive standout in any area. She has good power, I suppose, for the division. 6 knockouts in her 9 wins, which is pretty good, and 1 submission there as well. So she is a finisher. Whereas Sara McMann on the other side of it, then you probably wouldn't say that about her. She has 7 finishes and 13 fights and 7 decisions. 6 finishes and 7 decisions, 5 by submission, only 1 knockout. So, look, we know what Sara McMann is going to try to do. Was she a silver medalist in the Olympics or something like that? She's a very good wrestler. She's going to try to get in here. 41 years of age now. This is one of the last opportunities for her. She needs to win this fight as well. This is a massive pressure fight for Sara McMann. But she's been on a good run over the last while. Look, she lost to Juliana Pena, the champion, a while back. But she beat Carl Rosa before that. She beat Lena Landsberg as well. And she lost a few fights. But this is her opportunity. This is really her last opportunity to get towards the title. And she needs to do all she can. We saw her, she added back in the wrestling more in that Carl Rosa fight. And I think that's what she needs to do here. You know, it might not be rocket science, but I think what you do against someone like Aspen Ladd, who I think is the sort of person who looks for the opportunity, or kind of, do you know what she reminds me of a little bit, right? Do you know those Holly Holm fights where you see her like throwing shots from the outside and like missing by about 100 miles? Aspen Ladd is a little bit like that as well, but kind of more, what would the word be? Juvenile in her approaches to doing it, I would say. And she kind of gets in closer than Holly Holm does. Like, Holly Holm almost uses that range as a weapon, even though it's literally not a weapon because it's not doing any damage. But she bamboozles people with it at times, you know, and that's maybe how she's had a lot of success. Whereas I think Aspen Ladd kind of, it's not look a lot of time, but it's, you're kind of barreling into a range where if you met someone who's a higher of a level, they're either going to tie you up, push you against the fence, win like 2 minutes of the fight, or take you down, or they're going to land a big counter shot and knock you out, right? Sara McMann's not going to do that. But the clinch part of it, if she can do that and get a takedown from that clinch, I think it's massive. Like, Ladd in those positions, and why she has been so successful is she's usually the bigger, stronger woman in those positions with the better technique. But will she be that against Sara McMann? I really think that's where the fight is going to go. Now, maybe she'll come out and land one big shot and knock out Sara McMann. Look, it could happen. Without a shadow of a doubt, it could happen. But I'm kind of banking on this fight going into that clinch, and the battle for who's going to be stronger with better technique is going to win it there. And it's hard to bet against McMann in that. I think that Ladd will be a little bit... I think she's naturally bigger, and I think she will be a little bit stronger. But you can't bet against McMahon's strength. You know, she is strong. She is strong. There's no doubt about that. And you just look at her and you'll see how strong she is. But she also has that wrestling technique. And it just takes her to win 2 or 3 of those battles, get the fight to the ground, stay there on top for, you know, maybe 3 minutes, land a few shots and win 2 rounds out of 3. And I really think, and I look at the round, the win by decision betting in a while, but I think she can do that. I really do. I think she can do that against Aspen, and I think she can win here. So Sara McMann plus 123. I like that bet. Right, the next one here. This was a bet I kind of win. I hummed and hawed over. I really did. But I'm going for Tony Gravely versus Basharat to go to a decision, and that is plus 115. Plus 115. Either guy to win, but the fight to go to a decision. Honestly, I kind of struggle with who I was going to pick to win this. I think that plus 135 price on Tony Gravely is a very good price. I really do think it's a very, very good price, but I just backed out of it. honestly, my bet here should be Tony Gravely, but I just backed out of it. And the reason I'm going for this is, right, okay, between plus 135 and plus 115, it's a good gap, but not a massive gap. And I'm giving Basharat the old shot at maybe winning this fight, winning the decision. I went back and I watched some of both of them. Like, I watched a lot of Tony Gravely, so I didn't need to watch too much of him. But look, Tony Gravely is a very, very, very good wrestler. Someone who's striking maybe is a little bit misunderstood. I think people call him a bad striker there at one stage, and I don't think that's fair. I think he showed that recently as well, that he can strike as well. But as I said, a very good wrestler. Basharat, you know, good all around, but a very good striker. You know, throw those wheel kicks, throws a lot of kicks to the body. And just watching his UFC fight, I think he's only had one so far, if I'm not mistaken. He kicks to the body way too much for a guy who's going to be fighting a wrestler. And okay, he might switch that up and might not do it, but God almighty, if he throws 1 or 2 of them, Tony Gravely's going to eat that for breakfast. And he's just going to catch that leg, put him down, and there's a round 1, because Gravely doesn't get off you. Gravely is an insanely good wrestler. And I think Basharat's very, 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 very good. Very good. And I think he has potential to be top 15, top 5. You never know. You're right. But at this stage of his career, I think this is a really tough matchup. I think Tony Gravely is one of those guys. I don't think he's not ranked at the moment, I don't think, but he's the type of guy I think that I think he's underrated. I really do. I think he's extremely good. But I do think if he wins this fight, I think he'll win it by decision, right? And so I've given him to win by decision as the bet, but maybe Basharat can win the decision as well. Just the fight to go to the distance. Now, I say that because what if Gravely does get the fight to the ground, can't land much, and keeps there for like 3 minutes, but in the 2 minutes they're standing, he stays a bit defensive, but he eats 2 or 3 big shots. We know how judging works these days, lads. All it takes, like, Basharat could be on his feet for 3 minutes in this fight and win a decision. It really is, I think, one of those fights, and a lot of it has to do with Gravely on the ground. Now, Gravely usually throws some good ground amount. He is good, but there are times as well where he's just laying on you for 3 rounds and or 3 minutes and not landing much, or 3 rounds, in fact. And that's kind of what I'm giving myself a bit of a back there. So, the fight to go to a decision, either guy to win it, plus 115. There you go. That's the bet for this week. Right. The main event and the flyer of the week, all in one. I'm going for Cory Sandhagen to win by KO TKO at plus 450. That's my flyer for the week, plus 450. Straight up, Sandhagen is the favourite, minus 181, plus 156 for Yadong. And I was a little bit surprised to see not only was that the line, but the line was that wide. And you know what? In some places, there's one betting shop here I'm looking at, minus 215, plus 164. So Sandhagen minus 215. That is a big, big gap there. A big, big gap. Now, right, so anyone who listens to the show knows what I do. I go through the betting odds first. I look, see is there anything stand out, pick out maybe 1 or 2 bets, go and watch a few fights for them, and then, you know, watch fights and pick out the rest of the bets. So what I did here was I picked out that bet, right? First of all, and then I went to watch, and I can't remember, I looked up Yadong, whatever the first or second fight comes up, I clicked it, just skipped a little bit in, and there was Yadong just like knocking a lad's spark out. I was like, oh wait, hold on. Did I pick the wrong method here? I wonder, I looked through it here, but I wonder maybe there's a method just to fight the in via knockout, because I could see that too. Like we'll get into the over-unders here in a second as well, but this is, I really think this is a very, very interesting fight. Having watched a good bit of both of them now here this morning before preparing for this. Now, either fighter to win by KO TKO is plus 160, so that's not a bad bet either, but this is the flyer, so it's a bit of a higher flyer. Look, I started it again and talking about athleticism, speed, movement on the outside, and that's how Sandhagen wins here. I watched back parts of his fight with Petr Yan, you know, and Yan not massively dissimilar in terms of his kind of plodding forward, landing that big right hand that Yadong is. No, someone will give out to me for comparing Yan to Yadong in the comments section. That's all, fuck off, don't mind you. But in that fight, in the start of it anyway, his ability to kind of switch stances, to move around, to keep himself safe was really, really good. And you have to do that against Song because he hits like a truck. Now, the thing about Song is, right, if you keep doing that, you have to remain safe against him. And you have to, and when I said if you keep doing it, you have to keep doing that. You have to, because if you give him a second and you stop that movement, you become any bit predictable. Song is just going to plod forward, throw the kind of either the leaping left hook inside, a left hook to the body, or a bit of a jab, and then come straight up with that tall right hand, I like to call it, and land it and knock you out. He is going to do that, but I think if you can kind of put yourself in intelligent danger, like, you know, kind of stick out that chin to know the shot is coming in, pull back away, and do it multiple times over and over and over, and have that as like your game plan, but to win from the outside while you're doing that. Song, I think, is going to get tired because he puts a lot into that. As we've seen, Sandhagen doesn't really get tired that much. And I think, like, I'm giving this Sandhagen to win by TKO KO, and I could do it in the first round. He could land a flying knee or something like that. We've seen that before. But I've predicted a few of these pretty well recently, I must say, but I think this is going to be long. And I think it's going to be a 4th or 5th round TKO KO for Sandhagen. I think he's going to tire him out, and then maybe start catching him, you know, throwing in those leg kicks. when Song can't kind of break that distance anymore and he's just standing in the pocket, I think like a head kick is going to open up, and I think that flying knee is going to open up as well. Like I know I mentioned it twice now, but I really do think someone who throws that right like that and kind of dips into it, but throws it kind of, high, the high right, I think that leaves you open for that flying knee as well. And Sandhagen is tall and big. If he might get hit in the shoulder, he might get hit in the chest, but he's trying to throw that flying knee coming inside, and it's going to hit Song on the chin, and it's going to be nighty-night, I'm afraid. So, now that's just a prediction. I think it's a very close fight, and I give Song a big opportunity here for him to win by knockout as well. I think it's a possibility, but yeah, that's my flyer of the week. That is my flyer of the week. Sandhagen to win by TKO KO plus 450. Right, let's get into some more of the odds. Just while we're looking at the main event, let's talk about some more of the odds for that. The over-unders are very interesting here. Let's look at plus 2.5 rounds. So the over is minus 275, the under is plus 200. 4.5 rounds, the under is plus 110. That's not bad. That's actually plus 140, sorry, I'm just looking at it here. That's not bad at all. That is not bad at all. I think it'll be borderline that. I think it could be, the 4th round, the 5th round. Very interesting line, that one. The fight goes to a decision, minus 145, plus 115 for it not to go to decision. So the fight to finish, plus 115. Yeah, I don't know what I'd be going at that price. I wouldn't be betting the price at that. If it was a higher price, yes, that's why I'm looking at Sandhagen plus 450 there. If you like Song to win by KO, plus I see he's up as far as plus 450 in some places, plus 325 in other places as well. If you fancy the submission for Cory Sandhagen, plus 900. I see he's up as plus 1,300 even in some places as well. Cory Sandhagen, let's just look at his record here again. He's 3 submissions and 6 knockouts. So, maybe wouldn't be the worst bet in the world. But yeah, for some interesting lines there, absolutely. Let's run through some of the other fights. Daniel Zellbuller against Trey Ogden. Daniel is the favourite there, minus 300, plus 250 for Ogden. I was looking at Inja Kawani versus Rodriguez. Njokuani is a minus 130 favourite, plus 110 for Rodriguez. The knockout here, Njokuani, plus 205. That's probably what I go for. Obviously, this betting is very close here. Rodriguez is the underdog. I think if Njokuani wins this fight, he'll win it by knockout. That would be my say. So if you're backing this fight, if you're backing Njokuani, you might as well back him by knockout plus 205. I think if the fight goes longer, if it doesn't, I think Rodriguez will win it. Honestly, I think Rodriguez is a good fighter, better all around, but Njokuani has that power. This is why I've definitely looked at this, but I would avoid that one. Cameron Van Camp plus 167, minus 192 for Nicholas Mata. The Fili fight I talked about earlier on, minus 114, minus 106 for Algeo. Amadovsky is the underdog, plus 350, minus 450 for his opponent, Joe Pfeiffer even. Rodrigo Nascimento, plus 148. Tanner Bozer is back, minus 167. Never know with Tanner, honestly. Nascimento, yeah. What's the finish in that one? Fight doesn't go decision, minus 205. Let's see. Nascimento by KO. I know he likes to take the fight to the ground and stuff. He's a plus 1,000 to win by KO. That's heavyweight, isn't it? Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it is. Let me just 100. It is heavyweight. Yeah. Someone to win in a heavyweight fight by knockout at 10-1 seems an awful lot to me. Even if you got the fight to the ground and won by TKO KO, that'd pay as well. So, that's not a bad. If I'm throwing in another flyer there, Nascimento TKO KO plus 1,000. There you go. Damon Jackson in against Pat Sabatini. I talked about earlier, minus 185, plus 160 for Jackson. Hernandez is minus 174 against Barrio, plus 149. I think that's just about right. Lewis Kosk, plus 182, minus 212 for Trevin Giles. I like Trevin Giles in that one. Big price though, that's the only thing, or small price even. Ladd against McMann. McMann 123, minus 143 for Aspen. Ladd And then the last couple, Denise Gomez and Luma Lockboom. Lockboom is the big favourite there, minus 231, plus 193. I think that's just about right as well. Agapova is the underdog, plus 125 against Gillian Robertson, minus 145. And then Javid Basharat, Tony Gravely, very close in the bet, minus 155 for Basharat, the favourite, plus 135 for Gravely. I'd be going for Gravely, lads. I'd be going for Gravely, but you know, maybe I'm wrong. There's just actually one other fight I wanted to mention on Octagon this weekend. It is this weekend, yeah. Alex Lahore against Patrick Kalinick. If anyone has watched any of my KSW stuff, and talking to my guy Sean Denny as well, Kalinick is very, very good. And if you have an ACA, a parlay, maybe he's the sort of guy you would throw into it. Alex Lahore, former Bama champion, a very, very good fighter as well. But I think Kalinick will have enough for him there. So that's definitely one I would keep an eye on and maybe throw into a bet there as well. All right, I will leave it at that. Please let me know in the comment section below over here on YouTube your bet for the week. Let me know just your one bet for the week, your lock of the week. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, I'll leave it there. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.